Welcome to another episode of the Drew's News Podcast. I'm so excited today because I have the one, the only Rita Inman with me. She is the Assistant Director of Access Services at the Disability Resource Center. I also had the pleasure of working with her as my learning specialist. To know her is to love her, and she's just a great joy. But as I said, Cypress Hall has played a big part in my life, and the DRC is one of the many ways that has came about. So I just wanted to bring a representative on from their office to kind of spread the good news and share the wealth about the great work that they are doing here within the community at the University of Florida. Welcome, Rita. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here and just share a little bit about what our office does and how we can help facilitate accommodations.
Absolutely. So, just to get started, if you can tell our listeners or our viewers that they're listening or they're watching right now, a little bit about yourself and who you are. Who's Rita?
So I am a Florida native. I have literally lived in only two cities in the state. So Ocala, Florida, and then I moved to the even smaller town of Williston, where I currently reside. So I live out in the country on 40 acres, actually. I have one son who is 11 now, so we're in the double digits. And I have been married to my husband for 16 years, which makes me sound really old, but I'm not. I got married young. And I was a past educator. So I was an educator for 10 years. And then I transitioned into higher ed and working specifically with our DRC students here at UF.
Absolutely. It's so wonderful. As I said, Rita is my learning specialist here at the University of Florida. And we just hit it off right away because, I have those small town roots as well, right on the corner in Trenton. So we're like, oh, wait, what a small world. It truly is. You never know who you know and who knows who, and it's just one big happy family at the end of the day in the Tri County area, as I like to say. So, enough about us. Let's get down to the nitty gritty. What is the main mission of the UF Disability Resource Center?
So when I think about the DRC, there's kind of three things that I really think about. First, I want to celebrate disability as something that we can bring together and see everybody for who they are and what they bring in different aspects. So celebrating disability is definitely the top thing that I think about. I also think about educating. I think there's so many misconceptions when it comes to educating people about students that have a disability, or even what is a disability. So I'm actually working with a group in my grad school, and that's something that I'm sharing things, and they're like, I didn't even know that is even considered a disability. I've struggled with mental illness my whole life, and I had no idea that me struggling, I could receive accommodations for that. So educating not just other students, but campus partners, faculty members, and really just having them understand what barriers are. And then, of course, we're always facilitating access. So whether it's us facilitating the access ourselves, doing testing services, providing housing accommodations, or working with faculty and educating them on how they can facilitate the access in their own classroom environment.
Absolutely, and I second that. Education is the key to success with anything. But for me, in my advocacy work and as a motivational speaker, what I like to say is it's never too soon to educate people about people with disabilities, right? As a motivational speaker, some of my most favorite events are when I get to go in those kindergarten and first grade classrooms and those students actually get exposure. It may be their first exposure to a person with a disability. So they just have a whirlwind of questions, and it's like, wow, these kids are really on top of their game, and like, how do they know to ask these questions that they're asking? But it's just incredible. And I always tell parents, it's very individualized, but for me, I'm very much an open book, right? So when kids come up to me and say, hey, mommy, daddy, what's wrong with him? And they try to silence their kid, I'm like, no, let me use this as a teaching moment, because moving forward, they will, when they approach their next person with a disability, they'll know how to handle it. So I think education is definitely key. I love that point that you brought up there.
Well, and I think that silence kind of makes it that like taboo, or are we not supposed to talk about it? But it's good to talk about it. So I love that you feel comfortable in taking that approach.
Exactly. It's what I do. It's why I get out of bed every morning, right? Huh. So the next question: if you could describe the DRC in one word, what would it be and why?
So my one word is transform. And I just think, kind of going back to what I really truly think are the core values of the DRC, we're transforming students' experience, whether that be a student that is here within our office, or that be a student that has made a connection with our office through like our disability allyship or our DAPI groups. We are transforming in some way their UF student experience. We might be transforming their instructor's view of different things. And I love it when I have a conversation with an instructor and they're like, I never thought of it like that. And I'm not sharing anything about the student's actual diagnosis, but barriers. And it's just, they never thought of certain things. So yeah, the biggest thing is just, I think, making a transformation across the University of Florida. And I love seeing how that has changed over time. I mean, even going into COVID, we had to transform our thinking of how we were going to facilitate access when we weren't all on campus together. So I think it's definitely kind of shows that we can continue to change and move things in a different direction, and we can see things improve and make changes over the time to come.
Absolutely. When you talk about the changes with COVID, I think your office has done a remarkable job at, adapting, making sure that people and your students, such as myself, are able to get their testing done at the easy most accessible location and things like that. Or if they can't get to that location, they can come. Last resort, of course, they can come to the office and get tested. So I just think you all have done an incredible job with COVID. I mean, y'all, I knew that this would be a breeze for you all because the office does great work, anyways, right? And that's what we do. We adapt and we overcome. So just I commend you all for the great work that you all have done with that COVID transition there. How many students are currently seeking assistance through the DRC, and what qualifications does one have to meet in order to receive services through your office?
So as of now, we are serving over 4,100 students. So I was actually looking at some of our data the other day. I'm the data person in our office, and I'm noticing a trend of between 200 and 250 students, new students having initial appointments every single semester. So I think that attributes to a few things, but one of the things is people knowing who we are and knowing we're a resource for our students. When it comes to qualifications, it's a little bit different. There are definitely specific accommodations that we have to have some documentation for and look at, okay, is this reasonable? But we really take a social model approach. So when students fill out a pre-registration form, that's kind of their first connection with our office, and they make that initial appointment. It's really a conversation of what barriers are you experiencing? And sometimes students look at me like wide-eyed, like a deer in the headlights. I'm like, what do you mean? And I kind of share it as, what is it that you think is making it difficult for you to be successful as a learner? Okay, and let's talk about that. So, and we really break it down to what's causing the barrier. I mean, a very simple one is, I'm not finishing my test in time. So time is your barrier. Okay, let's talk about how we can add additional time or maybe allowance of breaks to kind of facilitate that. Or is it the testing environment itself? I get so distracted when I hear the person beside me's pencil scratching on the desk, or they're tapping their foot with the clock ticking. So we can talk about testing environment. So it's definitely a holistic approach of what the student is experiencing at the time. And it could look different this semester versus next semester, especially during this, okay, we're all remote now. So we've had to implement a lot of different accommodations just because so many students are online. And then you know what, when we return in the fall, it might look a little different, and we have that conversation and we work through it as it comes.
And I think for me personally, some of the barriers that I've had, especially with in my industry of broadcast news, the COVID has certainly been a blessing in disguise for me because it's really even that playing field and certain things that I have been asking to do within the industry prior to COVID, like Zoom interviews. Not all the time, of course. Like you still go out in the community, but when possible, if it makes it easier. And I think the industry is starting to realize that, hey, this is possible. These accommodations are possible. So now, when and people, it may be a different accommodation for someone else, but when we go out into the workforce, I think that these employers will now see that, hey, it's been done. So when we go in there and we request our accommodations, they're not looking at us like, sorry, can't do this because
Mhm.
they've done it. So I received some of the services and supports through your office, and I'm sure there's some that I don't even know you all provide. But what kind of services and supports? Just a brief synopsis, of course. There's so many to cover. Does your office provide?
Oh, you don't want the whole list, Drew? Like the entire one? The great thing about accommodations is, yes, we definitely have this list and these things that we go to for sure. But then also it can be very, very specific for course and student. But if we were to talk about like a brief overview, there's testing accommodations. We call things like access services. So that's access to course material, the way it's presented. Maybe it's an audio version of the text, audio test. So testing services, we offer housing accommodations and housing services, which I know we'll talk about as well. And then registration. So maybe it comes down to, okay, I can't take a full course load at this time, or due to my barrier, I need to make sure that I have an earlier registration date, things like that. So kind of, if we have like little buckets that we put them in, and there's kind of those four main areas: that testing, academic, registration, and housing are our four main buckets, and then we break them down definitely in depth from there.
Gotcha. So in this society, we have people like me who are proud to be disabled, who fully embrace everything their disability um, brings to them. I say all the time, without my disability, I probably would be some old Joe Snow on the street, and I wouldn't have got all the amazing opportunities that I've gotten along the way. So I really use my disability as a platform. But then there may be some out there that, are a little hesitant about embracing their disability and not quite comfortable with it yet. So what would you say, what would you tell someone who may be listening or watching right now who may be a little hesitant about, seeking help through your office?
I mean, this is a hard one because it's hard to, it's like we can help you so much. We have so many resources for you, but they don't want to take it, kind of thing. And so it gets to like this really like touchy situation, or but it's really assuring students. So when I think about accommodations, I explain to students, especially with some that are like, I just really filled out the pre-registration form. I just kind of want to know what's going on. What are my options? But I really don't know. I don't really know if I want this disclosed. They definitely don't want their diagnosis disclosed, and we don't do that. Like that is something that is definitely private. We just tell instructors what accommodations to facilitate. So I have this conversation where it's not that, I think there's this misconception that because someone has a disability, they're getting an advantage. And it's not an advantage at all. It's, to me, it's, we're providing a service that is making things equal. And I explain to students, I'm like, do you realize how much harder you are working compared to some of these other students because of your disability? And and you have over the years developed these maybe study habits or things that you could go to because you had to. And when we provide accommodations and we facilitate them, we're equaling the playing field. So it definitely is something they have to own and they have to be okay with. But it's something that they also should know that we don't share any of those types of things. A lot of students will also ask me, is this going to make my diploma look any different? Or is anybody going to know that I was a part of your office? Because sometimes they come to us and their family has no idea, especially with mental illness. Their family has no idea that they are coming to our office and receiving services. And it's really something that they have to figure out for themselves, and they have to get to that point to where they're comfortable owning that and owning that identity. And I just try to encourage them in the most possible way that I try to make them realize that they've been doing so much to get to this point, and realize that this is something that you truly need. It's not something that it's because you need something as an advantage or anything like that.
Absolutely. Something I want to touch on really quickly, because you touched on mental illness, which I love that. A lot of people think of disability and they just think of a wheelchair or physical
Mhm.
limitation. But I want to let people know that the DRC is here for you beyond that. And you don't have to have a physical disability. Maybe it's a learning disability or invisible disability. There's the word that I'm looking for. And they're there to help you every step of the way. You don't have to have just a physical disability to receive services through this wonderful office.
Well, and when you Google disability, the first thing that comes up are images. Like if you do the image search, it's going to be images of like things that you can see. So I love that you pointed out there are so many invisible disabilities, and I think that's where it's probably harder, because it's like I can keep this and I can hide this kind of thing. And being comfortable to share that, I definitely think is an amazing thing for some of our students.
And it may be scary for some of those students when in invisible disabilities, because they may be like, people aren't gonna take me serious. With
Mhm.
me, they see the chair, they're like, oh yeah, this guy definitely needs help. But some of these, students may be scared. They're like, they're not gonna believe me that I really need this help because they can't see it. So I would just encourage you all, if you're listening or watching, to seek out and let the DRC help you facilitate that conversation with faculty. I promise you, you won't regret it. And also, I just want to let you know, everybody's experience is individualized, right? I'm not here to say, seek help right away from the DRC. It's all in your own timing, right? So for me, I've embraced my disability from day one, but it may take time. But whenever you're ready, just know the DRC is there for you. This next thing is so, like I said, it's so detrimental to me. It's a big game changer that has changed my life. One of the ways that your office, or one of the things, excuse me, that your office prides itself upon is being able to facilitate housing in Cypress Hall for students such as myself with disabilities. Could you tell me more about this amazing state of the art facility we have here at the University of Florida?
Absolutely. And it's interesting because I've had a lot of high schoolers reaching out to me in the last probably 6 months, because it's that time where they're filling out applications, and it's because they found Cypress Hall. So Cypress Hall is a fully accessible hall, and it's universally designed. So it's not that we're only allowing students that need housing accommodations stay there. Now, what I mean by fully accessible, they have sure hand lifts within some of the residence halls that's able to transfer a student from a chair to bed, bathroom as well. We have ADA compliant doors, little features like the light switches being at certain heights and things like that. The bathrooms are all ADA compliant. The vanities that move up and down, side to side. So we want students, part of being in college is that independence and feeling that independence and getting away from mom and dad or aunt, uncle, grandma, whoever you grew up with. And I think that being able to provide our students with a little bit of that independence and saying, hey, you can do this on your own, and we have a place for you, and we celebrate that, and we think that you will thrive here is an amazing thing. And there's not many universities that actually offer something like Cypress Hall in the accommodations and the features that we have. So it's definitely something that we are very proud of and happy that's here at UF.
Absolutely. And just a sidebar, I always tell people this for my viewers and my listeners that may not know. One of the big ways, like I love Cypress Hall no matter what, with all the bells and whistles. We have an iPad that controls those blinds and doors, automatic doors. But the biggest feature for me that has been the game changer, awkwardly enough, or weirdly enough, or strangely enough, whatever you want to say, is a walk-in shower, right? Because prior to coming to Cypress Hall, for 23 years, I had to crawl in and out of the bathtub head first. And I don't know how I did it, but I did. You do what you gotta do, but I can say 6 months from now, or however long it is until August, I can't count today. Um, I hope and I pray that I don't have to come back to experience that. And that's something that I hope, with my time here and as I exit the University of Florida, that I can work with the University of Florida to figure out how we can extend that universal design concept beyond the doors of Cypress Hall. There's so many apartments here in this booming college town of Gainesville, right? But there's not very many that have a shower. They all have a tub. And what I like to say, there's this state mandated rule with handicap parking, right? For every 25 spots, I believe it is, there has to be a handicap spot. So why can't we do something like that of that nature within the apartment setting? Now, I'm not saying they have all these apartments have to go out and get all these bells and whistles like we have the luxury of having at Cypress Hall, but just a shower can make the difference. So I hope that I can work with these designers, and it's all about conversation, including people with disabilities, giving us a seat at the table when you're designing these apartments. Keep us in mind. Talk to me. Talk to us advocates. Let us try it out. Let us say, hey, this looks great, or this might be what's better. It's all about conversation. So I really, Cypress. Like I said, I don't have any words to describe Cypress. I could talk about it forever, but there are no words to describe Cypress. You've got to see it. And what I'll do for you all, for your viewers and listeners that may be interested in seeing Cypress Hall, I know we're in the times of COVID right now, but I actually had the pleasure a couple years ago to do a virtual reality tour of my room, and I have the link to that, so I'll put that in the show notes below. So feel free to click on that. Or if you have any questions about Cypress, reach out to the DRC or myself, and I can direct you. But like I said, I can't put into words all the greatness and goodness and features that Cypress Hall has to offer. It's just truly a wonderful place. So please click that link if you're interested and check out Cypress. What would you say is one of the most rewarding parts of your job at the Disability Research Center?
I think it's when those students come back to me and I get an email and they're like, I just took my test and had my extended time and it's helped me so much. Or I never thought I could have this conversation with my instructor about just needing this small extension on my assignments, and it's helped me so much. It's part of that independence. So yeah, we're not with our parents or our grandparents, aunts, uncles, whoever kind of supported us along the way. So I get to be that person. I get to be that advocate for that student. And so, I mean, I'm getting chills just like thinking about it when I have a student come back to me and just say, you don't realize how much this has helped me. I want to get teary-eyed just thinking about it. It reassures the work that I'm doing, and it's really just I can't say it enough how much joy that brings me. So just being able to advocate for our students is definitely the very best part of my job. And there's some that I have been with since their freshman year now, and it's already said, like, I will see you walk across that stage or roll or whatever. I will be there because I have been a part of your experience, and I'm so proud of you for it. I hope the legacy is seeing disability as like a forefront. really having that conversation and like it is a part of diversity, and we can celebrate it, and it's not this thing that we tuck in the corner and nobody talks about. It's okay, just like I said, like having those conversations. And when you think of UF, I definitely, like I shared a little bit ago, when sometimes people think of UF, they're like, oh, I saw Cypress Hall, tell me a little bit more about that. And that's definitely a step in the right direction to say, we we celebrate students with disability here at the University of Florida, and we want to make sure that we're able to provide access for them in whatever way possible, whatever that means. So if anything, our legacy, I really hope it is that we do value all of our students, and we want them to have the same student experience that any other student has across the university. So legacy is definitely like, yeah, we want, and we want to just keep growing. I said earlier, we're at 4,200, almost just under 4,200 students, so about 4,100. I've seen that number grow just since I've been here in this short amount of time. And so, and I see it growing in many different reasons, and just understanding like it's okay, it's okay to own your disability and be proud of it. And we're going to help you along the way get through this college experience and enjoy every bit of it.
Absolutely. I can say it's been one crazy, wild roller coaster ride for me. But you all make it easy, right? Whenever I have an issue, whenever I have a problem, you are right there at my side to solve it. And for that, I'll be forever grateful. So, we've had a great conversation today, right? If anyone's listened to this, if anyone's watched this and they're like, oh, I gotta know more about the DRC, or oh, I need to get accommodations for myself, or oh, I need to learn more about Cypress and how I may go about getting housing, how can they connect with your office?
So there's a couple different ways you can submit. You can send us an email and just say, hey, I want to know a little bit more. That is accommodations with an S at ufsa.ufl.edu. Or we are doing online booking. So that's one of the things that we moved towards during COVID. So it could be easier for our students to connect with us. So if you go onto our website, you can book an inquiry appointment with a number of our learning specialists. Those are about 20 minutes long, and you can just ask all kinds of questions like, do I need documentation? These are some things I'm experiencing. What about this? I had this in high school. Is it still an accommodation? We're happy to answer any questions that anyone has, and really just, like I said, educate. That's the teacher in me, maybe. It's coming out.
Absolutely. And they also have social media as well. I'll be sure to put that email that you just mentioned, the social media, all that in the show notes below. So don't worry if you're wondering, oh, I need that information to connect. It will be all down below. You just listened or watched another episode of the Drew's News podcast. If you have a testimony that you like to share, or a topic that you would like me to cover, please reach out to me on social media on our platforms at Drew D's Reports, or you can email me at dsreports@gmail.com. And as always, remember, if you can dream it, you can drew it.